Time to dive into your bracket. The brackets are out, folks. We are just a few days out from, in my opinion, the best couple of days in all of sports. Those first 2 days in particular, the Thursday, Friday, those first 2 days of the tournament, you got your brackets filled out. There's excitement. You feel like you can have a perfect bracket. You're going to win your group. And then all the madness starts to happen, but you get 16 games on Thursday, 16 games on Friday. Erik and I are recording this on Tuesday night, so we'll take a break from the NBA coverage that we've had recently. And this week, we'll still talk some basketball, but just the college basketball, Erik, as we dive into the bracket. So we can go pretty simple and just bounce all around from the East, which in most brackets, you're looking at the top left part of the bracket, and that's what we're going to be looking at right here as we take a look at ESPN. So, Erik, buddy, you're someone who follows college basketball all throughout the season. I know you have a bunch of future wagers bet, teams to win it all, teams to make the Sweet 16, and man, these few weeks with all the opportunities, the value for gamblers, this is about as good as it gets.
Oh my God, I love Conference Championship Week. It is such a underrated time to be in Las Vegas. If you guys haven't done it, you are for sure missing out. And then the NIT is going on. You know, we had a couple good games tonight. Xavier went on a big run, was in position to win against Georgia. Cornell almost shocked the world, beat Ohio State. It was a great day of basketball. Obviously, Wagner Howard came down to the end. UVA got embarrassed like I knew they would. No business being along in the tournament. I'm really excited, though, for Thursday afternoon with my boys starting it off with Michigan State.
Well, let's get into it. We have a lot of ground to cover. Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Make sure to follow Erik on Twitter, etoff21. Follow all of his great content at etoff21 Sports. He'll have a lot of stuff over the next few weeks. And then, you know, you fill out your bracket, and I thought you made a great point I saw on social media the other day where it said, okay, hey, you come into your bracket, you fill it out, but it's not your Bible. You don't have to be bound to that. When things change, you see results, you have to be ready to call an audible. And if you're betting, you're not changing your bracket, obviously, once it's locked in, but when you're betting these games, you don't have to say, oh, you know what, I picked Purdue to win it all, so I can't make a change now. I have to stick with Purdue. Don't do that. Take each game individually. As you normally would. And just
it's game to game. You can't go in there and say, okay, for me, I like Tennessee this year. I have Tennessee going far. There's no way in hell. I bet you probably 2 games at most. I will bet Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's game to game. And the important thing
matchup to matchup.
All these teams struggle at something. Like case in point, Purdue. Purdue is bottom 5 in the country defending the pick and roll. Bottom 5. Now
you have an NBA guard or an NBA wing that can control the ball and run the pick and roll.
Like they're toast. They are absolutely toast. So it's really interesting. Obviously Stenson, UConn, that's where we're gonna start. I think, I could break this one down, but I think it's pretty concurrent.
Yeah. I think we're UConn here, and you and I will sort of both talk about the games, and we won't have the exact, we don't have to put necessarily everyone moving through the bracket, but we can just sort of talk about how you and I have built them. Both of us have UConn moving on here. And then below them, FAU Northwestern in a really tough bracket. I thought this was by far the most difficult of the brackets of the 4, just based on, you have the number 1 overall seed, UConn. They were saying that Iowa State was supposed to be the number 1, the best of the 2 seeds. And then you have like a team like Auburn, who's been a top 10 team in KenPom in a lot of metrics. They're a 4 seed in here. You got FAU and San Diego State. They were Final 4 teams last year, and they're all in this bracket. So I thought this was a pretty difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, but there's still spots, though. I think so.
Oh, yeah. Just as far as the depth and the comparing the 4 of them, I think here, I feel confident that a lot of different teams here could play well and could make runs. And what do we do in the 8-9 matchup, Florida Atlantic here?
For me, I just think this is in too many injuries. If Northwestern was healthy, I would look to take him here. FAU, they have Baldwin, who is going to eat on the glass. You have Davis. Their defense is down a little bit compared to last year, but you need to remember they did have a step up in class. They're playing the American instead of Conference USA. So I think they're going to be a little bit more, quote unquote, battle tested, but it did seem to me like they're going through the motions. I like Davis. I like Godwin to eat on the glass. So I like Florida State advancing to face UConn.
Florida, it's basically like a pick'em game. It's like Florida, yeah. I think it's like favored by 1. UConn is a 26 plus point favorite in their game. So Florida Atlantic moving on. And then if we were to go through Florida Atlantic, if they play UConn, I'm betting Florida Atlantic in that game. I don't think they beat UConn. I think they cover and keep it really close because they do have some size.
And they're going to do the template that St. John's laid out. Go fast. Try to get UConn's big man in some pick and roll situations. Try to take advantage of the athleticism advantage at the guard position. I know for me, and I know like there's a team we're going to get to in the next little quadrant of games that you're high on. I'm not as high on them, but for me, if UConn's going to lose, this is the game they lose.
This might be right here. And so so like someone like me who likes another team, I would love seeing a Florida Atlantic getting by UConn. And I had no problem in building your brackets if like UConn is the team that I think a lot of people are going to be penciling into their Final Fours. And so to me, I think in a zig when everybody zags situation, I wanted to not have UConn be my national champion. I wanted to kind of start there and go backwards with someone else. And I looked at the way they were built, and I think Stetson, they'll get through. But boom, round 2, that could be really tough with Florida Atlantic. And then below them, let's go San Diego State, UAB. Does UAB have enough to get by the tough defense?
I don't think
San
they
Diego
have
State?
enough on the defensive end to go against Ledee. I think Ledee's going to eat. The steps ahead that he's made in his game are insane. You have Trammell, who's been there before. Both their guards have been there before. To me, when you look at the only path that you can have is UAB making threes, and you can get Ledee in trouble. But with the way San Diego State plays, they're not going to allow UAB to get a lot of threes. You have Dusher, who's been there. We need to remember, he was the assistant coach during the Fab 5 run that Michigan had, and he came to San Diego State, followed Fisher here, took over. This is a league defensive program. He's built something special here. I think San Diego State gets through here. I think this game could be close for the first 15 to 25 minutes of it.
And I have Auburn making a deep run. Auburn and Creighton are 2 teams that I'm very high on, and you'll hear me talk more about them. But Eric, tell me why I'm going to be sweating and nervous about my bracket probably by halftime in this game against Yale.
Yale is a 7-footer, Danny Wolf, who can step out, shoot the 3. That's going to be a matchup. They're going to create Boone to come out and defend him. Auburn lives off of turnovers. Yale doesn't turn the ball over well. This is a matchup I like to take, a team that plays slow in Yale and a team that can shoot a lot of threes and make them. That's what Yale does. That's the blueprint. I don't think Auburn is athletic as everyone thinks. Yale has experience. Yale won't turn it over. I think they're going to be able to create some matchup problems. I think this game comes down to the final possession. I bet Yale plus the 13, but I did not bet the money line. I think Auburn gets through in a nail biter.
And following that, I thought Auburn would match up well with San Diego State because Auburn, I think, is more balanced than San Diego State, where they will lean more on their defense. I think Auburn does have a little more they can throw at you, and with the size with Broome. So I went Auburn there moving through San Diego State. And I ended up just sort of while we're in this little top bracket, I ended up having Auburn beat UConn myself because I think with Broome, they're going to be able to make life a little bit difficult for the big man there with UConn. And then they do have the depth with Jalen Williams, with Baker Mazzara, with Denver Jones. So it's funny the way you were pointing it out. Like, I like Auburn, and I wouldn't bet them in that first game because I don't ever like them in situations where they're laying a big number. I like playing Auburn as sort of a dog or in a pretty even matchup where I think they have some options. I like the way they play defense. And I think I hadn't really articulated it very well, but I think of the teams with the really good defenses, Auburn might have the best offense or close to it. And that's probably why I'm high on them and Creighton, because of the teams that have the really good defenses, like an Iowa State, who we'll talk about in a minute. I do worry about them when they play another really prolific offense, because I don't know if they have enough offensively. I feel like Auburn and Creighton do. And they can slow you down in games where they will still have a puncher's chance with some of the top tier talent that they have. So on my bracket, Eric, I have Auburn all the way through up here to the Elite Eight. I have them beating Yale, San Diego State, and then I have them beating UConn. On your own individual bracket, talk to us about how you have the top part playing out.
On my bracket, as of right now, and I'm going to be honest, I usually go back and forth with these things.
Sure.
I have UConn beating FAU. I just feel that UConn has too many dudes. FAU is going to make it interesting, and FAU hasn't done it the whole year. To me, they're just going through the motions, and I think you play with your food too much, and it's going to catch up with you.
Bad habits.
It's going to catch up with them. In this game against San Diego State and Auburn, I just really feel that San Diego State is going to be able to control the pace, not let Auburn get into the positions. I think they have some physical guards that are going to make Auburn unhappy. I think Ladie is going to give Boone trouble. So I actually have San Diego State. I have them beating Auburn. One, to back up your point, though, I was talking to one of my friends today. He made a point how Auburn grades out this year, and you kind of talk through questions at the point guard position, questions at the big, your three-point shooting. They kind of profile a lot like UConn did last year, a four seed as well to make a run. I just don't see it with my stuff, and I'm not a Bruce Pearl guy, so I have them losing to San Diego State, and then in my own bracket, I have UConn over San Diego State.
It's funny, the two teams that where I think and I just recorded with you for your pod and for your show where we went through the bracket, that most of these teams we're pretty similar on. It just seems like that there's the one that I like more than you this year is Auburn, and the one that you like more than me this year is Tennessee. And other than that, I think we're pretty similar with a lot of the teams that we don't like as much, and maybe some of the teams we're trying to beat. Those seem like the two that we're a little separate on. But top part of the bracket here. So I have Auburn meeting in the final of the East bracket, and then we can go through the bottom part of the East bracket right here, where we have BYU and Duquesne. We were talking about previously how the Dukes should not have been an 11 seed, and I think you had said that BYU had to be moved based on the schedule.
They can't play on Sundays.
Yep.
And they were supposed to be on the 5 line, but because they can't play on Sundays, Gonzaga got moved up and BYU got moved down. You made a great point on my show, how it needs to be. They should do everything the week before, the day before. Kind of feels this was just kind of VCU, and when VCU lost, they didn't feel like it, so they put them in here.
Yeah,
I think we're going to see the Dukes come back to what they were during the season. They have 2 good guards, but overall their body of work isn't that solid. When you look at the teams they played, they only shot 29. I don't have the number in front of me. It was like 29.4, 29.5% during the A10 tournament. BYU shot 3 of 21. I think we're going to see shooting regression that favors BYU. So I'm going to take BYU here.
Yeah, I think BYU gets through. And in the next matchup, if it was a BYU-Illinois matchup, that could be like 105 to 100 type of game. But you are a little high on Morehead State.
I love me some Morehead, Gino. I love me. So look, I look at it like this. This Illinois State to me team, great. Illinois grades out like Iowa did a couple years ago when they lost to Richmond. Illinois can't defend, and those are the teams I like to defend. Morehead likes to play slow. They look to control the place. Morehead has size and athleticism to keep up with Illinois. Look, you have Moore, Minex, Treadwell, Thomas, Alkin, Phil. I just don't like this team. This is, to me, my equation when I do this stuff is I look at teams that play slow, that shoot a lot of threes against a team that's bad defensively. And that's exactly what Illinois is. Morehead State's not going to allow them to get out and run. That is going to make this a half-court game. And Illinois' half-court offense has been putrid this year. So I got Morehead State going through it.
Yeah, I mean, when you dive into the defenses of teams that made the teams that made the tournament, Alabama and Illinois. I mean, we're talking Kentucky is a bad one, but these are the teams that have horrible defenses and that could be very vulnerable when they play just other teams that are smart and that execute, right? Because if you're playing against a team that turns the ball over a lot, like they're still going to have the athletes to beat them in most spots. But when you play a team that is able to play smart and is able to execute, I'm fine picking Morehead State here against, in this spot against Illinois, because I actually had BYU winning the next game myself. What about you? How did you have it? So if you have Morehead State winning, then you've got Morehead State, BYU. Who would you have in that matchup?
I just don't. I think BYU lives in the eyes by the three-pointer way too much. And we have Morehead State, who's pretty good defending the three-pointer.
Minix.
BYU is able to do. Morehead can shoot the three. And we've seen when BYU's threes aren't falling, they struggle. Historically, they've shot poor away from home. So I actually have Morehead State making it all the way to the Sweet 16 in my bracket.
If you haven't heard the name Riley Minix, 23 years old, transfer, played 4 years of NAIA. One of those years, he shot almost 50% from three on a massive clip, shooting a ton of threes per game. And he's a legit player. He'll probably be, I don't think he gets drafted, but he'll be in summer league somewhere and be a guy that tries to get like a two-way contract in the NBA because he's definitely got some ability. He's like a really good college player too. And then Washington State, Drake. It's been a great story for Washington State this year. This isn't the best matchup for them because the best player on the court in this game is going to be Tucker DeVries, and it's not that far from Drake.
2 hours away from Omaha. And Drake shoots a ton of threes, 40% of the year. Washington State has shown that if they can shoot threes, this is an issue for them. Washington State's going to try to slow the pace, make this a half-court game. But I really feel that Washington State has been playing over their head this year. They lost a lot of people going in. Great job by their coaching staff. But when you have DeVries, who's the best player on the court, you have an experienced strength team that was there last year. They blew it against Miami. I don't think this is going to happen this year. I bet Drake on the money line. I think Drake gets it done.
And I have no problem going either way in this game, Washington State or Drake, because in the next spot, Iowa State's there. And I don't think either of those teams can get through Iowa State. I think they get by South Dakota State. What would be interesting, though, is you have an Iowa State team who's been the number one defense in the country over the last 6 weeks. So it would be, I want to see them having to go up against a player like DeVries. That's a great matchup. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for in the tournament like this.
And we need to remember there's going to be more Drake people in the crowd.
I would bet Drake in that game for sure. I don't think they win, but I'd bet them on.
I have Drake actually winning that game.
Sure.
In my bracket, just because they're going to have the best player on the court. And we've seen when Iowa State has played someone that can take over the game, which Drake has, they have really struggled. DeVries can rebound, he can score, he can create off the dribble, he can go low in the post. I actually have Drake and Morehead State in the Sweet 16.
Nice. I love that. You've got some chaos down there. So then how do you have that moving? Who do you have getting out of that game?
I have Drake against UConn in the Elite Eight. I just kind of feel that Morehead State, Drake can defend the three a little bit better than the other two teams, Baylor and Illinois, that they're going to play. Drake is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Can play in the half-court game. Also, one thing with Iowa State, I don't trust their guard. I don't trust their guard play. That he's been very inconsistent. Last name starts with L. Of course, I'm spacing on it. So I think that's another factor with the Drake Iowa State game. Against Morehead State, though, like I said, Drake does defend the three a little bit better in the half-court set. So they're really not going to make them feel unsettled. Drake, did well against Bradley this year, which plays a similar pace as Morehead. So I have Drake going through. That's when I have Drake's Cinderella story ending. I think UConn just has too much athleticism. Drake doesn't have the size down low to combat the UConn's bigs. or anyone on the wing that can guard number 11, who's that electric three-point shooter whose name I'm spacing on. So I actually have UConn making it to the Final Four.
For me, down here, I had BYU against Iowa State. So I have Iowa State winning the game against the Washington State Drake winner. Probably go Drake in that game, and then Iowa State beating them. I do have Iowa State beating BYU in a game where it'll be more defense, and I think what you can trust. I think I'm a little higher on Iowa State's offensively with Gilbert, Lipsy, Momchilovich. So I think I probably like them a little more on the offensive side than you do. My final in the East is Auburn versus Iowa State. I have Auburn moving on into the Final Four, coming out of the East bracket there. So the first that we get through. Erik likes UConn, but a ton of upsets on the bottom part for Erik. I have Auburn moving through there as sort of my my big upset in the bracket as a 4 seed coming out and into the Final Four. Let's move down to the West. Erik, we've got North Carolina here in what I think is the most wide open of any of the brackets. I could see, honestly, an 11 seed New Mexico, a 10 seed Nevada making a really strong run out of here. A team like St. Mary's, I could see losing in the first game or winning 3 games, right? And even in the 8-9 game, Mississippi State, Michigan State hasn't had a great year, but if they got through that game, you're telling me North Carolina wouldn't be really concerned about running into a Michigan State team? So to me, this is the bracket that could have a lot of chaos. I had North Carolina moving through, and I had Michigan State moving through. You are a Michigan State fan. Talk to us a little bit about your team.
Izzo 13-3 straight up in the first round. Mississippi State's led by Hubbard, the guard. MSU top 10 defensively. It will make life hard for them. Mississippi State doesn't shoot a lot of threes. They live inside the arc. Michigan State, one of the best 2-point field goal defenses, top 5. Michigan State, the key is, can they rebound? I think they will. I think with Cisco, Cooper, Knorr, Hall, they're going to make life difficult for the Mississippi bigs. And you're going to start to play Booker. Booker started to play more. Booker's got this 3-point stroke. He's a legit NBA player. 6'10", 6'11" kid that can step out. He's going to draw Mississippi State's bigs away from the rim, open up some half court, open up some driving lanes. Then you add Hall down in the post. You got Hogarth, Aikens, and Walker. I just think Michigan State has the advantage of the guard position. So I have Michigan State over Mississippi State.
Yeah, I got Michigan State winning. And you think they can upset North Carolina? I will bet Michigan State in that game. I don't think I can quite have them winning, but I will say another team that we're slightly off on a little, like I'm not that high on North Carolina, so I don't have a problem with you having Michigan State get by them, because I think St. Mary's could have Arizona winning this bracket. So for me, I'm not, like, I don't think North Carolina is unbeatable by any way, shape, or form. And you think Michigan State can match up well with them?
Yeah, just because NC State, they struggled when you have a guard. UNC struggled against NC State. What does NC State have? A guard that can get the rim, a guard that can make jump shots. Michigan State is a guard that can make jump shots and get in the rim. They have 3 of them. They have Aikens, Hogarth, and Walker. They have guys in the post, Cooper, Hall, that can make Baycock work. Then when Booker comes in, he's going to draw Baycock away from it. And I'll be honest, I like Hubert Davis as a player. He's one of my favorite players. I don't trust him as a coach. I think Izzo has a huge coaching advantage, quick turnaround type game. I will take Michigan State to the Sweet 16.
And then below them, you've got St. Mary's, Grand Canyon.
I got Grand Canyon pulling off the upset. For me, them losing Jefferson, they have no one that can guard Grant Foster. He's going to be the best player on the court. The key to this game is pace. Grand Canyon's going to look to push it before St. Mary's can set up their defense. Grand Canyon is elite at drawing fouls. If they can get St. Mary's into foul trouble, which I think they will, that is going to be very hard for St. Mary's. Grand Canyon is very good defensively, allowing the 3. That's going to make St. Mary's beat it from the interior. I think that Grand Canyon, because of how good they are shooting the 3s, no, sorry, defending the threes. If St. Mary's does shoot a three, it's going to be missed. It's going to lead to some fast break transition points. And I just don't see anyone that can stop Grant Forster. If this gets in a half court setting, he's going to be able to take over the game. They're going to be able to give him the ball on the wing, and he's going to be able to get to the rim.
This guy is a junior college player. He went to Kansas, to Paul. He gets to the free throw line almost 8 times a game. This guy is a legitimate scorer. So for St. Mary's, without Jefferson, they're going to try to slow you down a little bit. They're going to need Mahaney to – because the thing about Mahaney is he's one of those point guards that sometimes you want him to be more aggressive, right? Like he sometimes it's too much of a, hey, let's just get everybody involved. Let's make the right play. Sometimes you need him to say, hey, I got to go get a bucket right now. And that's a little bit concerning if you like St. Mary's because they could get a little lackadaisical in that sense. I do think they still probably have enough with Mitchell Saxon, who's good down low, and then Marciulonis. But I would not I have no problem betting Grand Canyon in this game. What did you play that? Was it +5?
5.5.
5.5.
5 on the money line. Next game here, Bama. This game is just going to be like watching a rec league game. Neither of these teams can play good defense. They're both going to look out to get on a run. Bama 112 in Ken Palm's D.
Terrible.
Both teams top 20 3-point rate. When you look at Bama's body of work, they really do struggle away from home. Alabama does like to attack the rim. I think they're better at attacking the rim than Charleston does like to attack the rim. I think they're better at attacking the rim than Alabama does. Bama, they're a team I like to fade. Good offense, shitty defense. I don't think they're going to get enough stops.
They're defensively, so they're ranked 112th on Ken Palm on defensive. And there aren't no teams in the tournament that are single-digit seeds are below them. The only teams that are below them are 13 seed, 14 seed, 16 seed, 15 seed, 14 seed, 16 seed, 13, 16, 16, 12, 15. So that tells you right there that because Stetson 16 is one of the lowest, but all of the teams that are below them defensively just aren't good basketball teams overall because it's hard to be a good basketball team when your defense is this bad. And now they're going to be playing against other teams that are efficient, that can execute. I just do not trust them at all in this game, nor whomever they would play in the next game, whether it would be Grand Canyon with Forrester or St. Mary's, who I much trust their team, their defense, and them being able to slow things down and make life difficult on Alabama. I have them losing, and I think they would lose to whomever they would play in the next game if they wanted to get through.
I think whoever wins the Grand Canyon St. Mary's game is punched into the Sweet 16.
Yep.
I think that, like I said, with Grant Forster, he's going to be the best player on the court for the first 2 rounds, probably even the first 3 rounds if they do end up playing Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to get through to the Sweet 16. That's when I do have their run ending. Michigan State can throw multiple wings at him to make him uncomfortable. I don't think Grand Canyon has anyone that can stop Hall on the low block. So I will have Michigan State making it to the Elite 8.
I've got North Carolina getting through up there. North Carolina St. Mary's is a game where I would bet St. Mary's. And did you say they've announced Jefferson out for the season?
Yeah, he's done.
Okay. Because I think initially they were saying they weren't sure like if he was going to get to the second weekend, but him being done would probably would probably hurt the chances of me picking them to beat North Carolina. I think they would maybe not have quite enough there. So I would have North Carolina, and this would probably be the bracket where I had, North Carolina, the 1 and the 2 with Arizona. But I will say I'm going to be betting probably against North Carolina in a lot of these spots along the way. And moving to the bottom part of the bracket, I think New Mexico is very live to win multiple games, Eric. I have them beating Clemson. New Mexico just won their tournament. New Mexico won 4 games in 4 days with House, with Mashburn, with Toppin. They can play fast. They're talented. They are better than an 11 seed. And I gave this stat out on your show. There have been 11 instances where the 11 seed has been favored over the 6 seed. And those 11 times, the teams are 10-1. They've won 10 of the 11, and 9 of those games they've won by double digits. So when they're putting a 11 seeded team as a favorite against the 6, that usually is telling you something. New Mexico is a slight favorite in this game. I played it at 1.5.
Can Clemson keep up defensively at the guard position? Is the question you need to ask. You got Dent, you got House, you got Mashburn. I don't think they're really going to be able to. Clemson has really struggled when they've played, when those guys have been forced to defend. I think they're going to make it uncomfortable. I know Clemson has got Hall, who's a beast, but I think Tobin and the other bigs at New Mexico is going to be able to limit them. Clemson is very experienced, but I just think New Mexico's got too much. House is one of the better defenders in the country. Baylor, look, great offensively. Defensively has been a nightmare. Zones usually play well, and I think Drew's going to do that here. I think they are going to have enough to get through Colgate. It wouldn't surprise me if Baylor blows them out here after what happened.
Me too.
But I think that then you're going to go in and you're going to play this New Mexico team that does have the guard play to make Baylor uncomfortable. Do have the guys that can knock down, shoot threes, guys that can get to the rim, guys are going to be scared to make threes. A good three-point shooting team. I think New Mexico makes it to the Sweet 16. Yep. Bottom half, look, you got 2 teams that play really slow that are playing in altitude. Dayton is only 6 deep, so if Nevada is able to get the ball, get them in foul trouble, it is going to be hard for them. Dayton, look, as much I went on this big rant on my show about Virginia not being able to beat them. Dayton doesn't have a win over a team in the field. They do not have a win over the team in the field.
And I know it's not fair to do this because you can't. But we saw the college football do this, right? When Florida State's quarterback got hurt. Like, this team hasn't been the same since Smith got hurt. They haven't been as good.
But even the Dukes are in this, Duquesne or whatever. They didn't beat them. They did not beat them at all during the regular season.
Yeah.
You look at Nevada, they got Blackshear, who's great. They have the point
Lucas
guard,
Coleman. They're switching.
Oregon State's team is used to the situation. I think Nevada gets it done.
Me too. I think Nevada or New Mexico could win multiple games just based on they're pretty deep. They have high level talent. They have some experience. I don't know if they can beat Arizona, but I think I'll probably be betting Nevada in that game if Arizona gets through. Cool story for Long Beach State.
Like Long Beach State, great story with their coach. Was it Moonson or whatever?
Yeah, he got fired and they're still playing.
To me, there's certain things that can happen that can motivate a team. For Arizona to finish the way they did, losing to USC, which don't get me wrong, your team, they were hurt all year. If that
they had a high ceiling, they were not bad. No, that's not as bad as the loss as it looks on paper.
They shot a little bad in the Pac-12. Arizona was able to run away with it, and they lose to Oregon. I think that's going to motivate them. I actually like teams to lose early. Teams I like to bet this time of year and back. I think the Caleb Love factor. I don't think Nevada can guard him on the wing, and Arizona's bigs will be able to do enough damage. Then you play New Mexico. I think that this is where New Mexico's kind of their Cinderella story ends. I think Love's going to be able to eat. I don't think they have they have enough bigs that they can keep Arizona's bigs off.
Olo is, dude, he's a good college big. Yeah. He's a very good college big, man. He knows where his spots are. He doesn't do anything that's over a 10-footer. He's big body. And then you have Love, you have Larson, Keyshawn Johnson. They have a young kid named KJ Lewis who's really started to play well over the last, 3 weeks to a month. He's the type of kid that if they're struggling, you bring him off the bench and you let him, go for 5 minutes and you you give him the reins and he'll get a few buckets for you. This team's pretty good. And I think they're in a good spot. Both Nevada and New Mexico aren't easy teams that they could match up with, but those are teams that have super high floor, super high ceiling, low floor. Arizona's just a little more consistent and balanced than both of those teams. So I actually have Arizona coming out of the bottom here, Eric, and I have them coming out of this bracket in the Final Four.
I have them coming out of this bracket too. I think they're going to be too much for Michigan State. Michigan State, their bigs aren't going to be able to handle Arizona's big.
Let's get over to the opposite side, Eric. Let's go. So we're looking at ESPN. We'll start up on the South. That's the top right, where we have Houston and Longwood. Houston, as you're pointing out, and you will point out, they're dealing with some injuries, but when they slow it down, they're physical. They're a great rebounding team. They're well coached. I think with Jamal Shed and Roberts, Francis, Cryer, Sharp, they're just going to be too much for this game. It might be the next game where they could be challenged, but I have them winning here. Nebraska A&M was one of those 8-9 matchups where I didn't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. Nebraska is going to try to light you up from 3. Texas A&M, really good offensive rebounding. And you think that you were pointing this out when we talked, while they don't have a great offense in a lot of their metrics, they probably should be better. And I would not be shocked to see them play well for a stretch of games here.
We have 2 guards in Bradford and Taylor that can get to the rim. You have bigs. They just do for some shooting. If this team could shoot threes, they'd be one of the better teams in the country. I'm a little worried because they do allow a lot of threes. We did see them lose to Penn State last year with how they played, but I just don't think that Nebraska's guard, the left-handed shooter, the guy that wears the headband, I don't think he's going to be able to play that much in that game just because of the physicality that Texas A&M is going to have. So I'm going to have Texas A&M over Nebraska. A little rematch here, the game that happened earlier in the season. This is the type of game when you have someone like Wade Taylor. Taylor can put you on your back and upset this Houston team. They have 4 guys that are hurt. Texas A&M is a great rebounding team. They're going to be able to limit Houston's second chances, keep them off the glass, and they're fine, comfortable playing this half-court grinded out game. I think Texas A&M is going to make it to the Sweet 16.
I had Texas A&M winning. I have Houston beating Texas A&M. I still think Houston's probably just got a little too much depth, but I will probably be betting A&M in that game because I agree with you on the upside that A&M has. In one spot that we very much agreed was that James Madison is a live dog here. James Madison is a 5-ish point underdog in this game.
Yeah, 5.5, depending where you look at.
They have 3 losses this year, and they only lost to 2 teams.
Yeah, they went on the road, beat Michigan State. They did lose to App State, who's very live in the NIT against Wake Forest. Wisconsin allows a ton of threes. JMU 37% from 3 on the year, averages 9 threes per game. Wisconsin, are we going to hit the regular season or the Big Ten tournament? They underachieved. They literally limped to the finals, limped to the end of the year. We need to remember how they finished. They played this Maryland team. I think at one point for threes, they were 10 of 13 against Maryland. And when you look at the score of shot quality, that's a very interesting thing.
I don't trust their guards in Wisconsin either.
Yeah,
I just don't trust them.
Offense, defense, JMU better rebounding team, elite defending the 3. They don't turn the ball over. Bickerstaff and Edwards can create. This isn't your typical Wisconsin team. I think JMU gets through. I personally bet on plus the 5.5 and plus 200.
You got a team that's 31-3, and this is a really basic way of breaking a game down, but they're on a 13-game win streak. They know how to win games. They find ways to win games, and then you have on the flip side, you have another team that is certainly capable of having good runs. We just saw Wisconsin make a good run into the conference tournament finals, but before that, they lost 4 games in a row to Nebraska, Purdue, Michigan, Rutgers. Then they came back again and lost 4 games in a stretch of 6. They lost to Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, and Purdue 4 of their last 6 games. So this is a team that one finds ways to lose, the other finds ways to win. A 13-loss team versus a 3-loss team. I'm always going to take the team that has a nose for winning a little bit more. That's James Madison. I'm not that high on Duke, but I do think the matchup against Vermont is a fine matchup for them. Hey, if they were playing Charleston or if they were playing Yale, I would probably go the other way. Like, Duke is talented, but you were kind of hitting on what I think is a right way, kind of soft.
Really soft, really aren't that physical. If you have a big that can punch him in the face, they're going to back away. I just think with Proctor and the rest of their guards, they're just a little too much for Vermont. Not your typical Vermont team. Historically, this isn't as strong as it's been in the past. So I'm going to go with Duke to get it done. And then I'm actually going to go with Duke to beat James Madison here. Duke's going to be able to defend the three a little bit better than Wisconsin. I don't believe that JMU has a big that can go out on the perimeter and take on Filipowski. And I think they're going to have the advantage of the guard play. So I think this is where JMU's run comes to the end. And then,
I'm with you on that.
Physical. And Duke struggles when you punch him in the face. And I don't think that Duke's going to be able to keep A&M off the glass. Even if A&M does shoot bad, I think they're going to get some second chances. So I like A&M there in the top half to come through to the Elite Eight.
So you would have A&M beating Duke. I have Houston beating Duke in that spot as we move to the bottom part of the South bracket. Texas Tech, NC State. NC State, got to give them a ton of credit. They just won 5 games in 5 days. They beat Duke, Virginia, and North Carolina. I'm not sure how, like you were pointing out, the legs that they're going to have left after that last week. And I think Texas Tech is a fine matchup for them. So I'll move Texas Tech on. I have Kentucky getting by Oakland. And then I think it's I really think Kentucky drew very well here.
I think Kentucky played great. You just kind of look at it right here. You got Texas Tech versus NC State. The big thing with that is we need to monitor the health of Washington. If Washington is there, he's really good defending the post and the rim. Going to make tough stuff for DJ Burns, big DJ. I really have to question NC State's legs. You win 5 games in 5 days. Now you turn around and play on Thursday. If this isn't a late Friday, this is a late Thursday game. That's a pretty big turnaround for a team that had some emotion. You have their coach finally getting the extension, the 2-year with the win. I think Texas Tech is going to be able to pull away at the end. And Oakland plays a lot of zone. Kentucky, young team. Are the lights going to be too big for them? I don't think so. I think their guards play are going to be able to knock enough threes, get to the rim. They do have the bigs that can take advantage of Oakland's inefficiencies on the glass. And then in the next game, I just think Kentucky's guards are just going to be able to throw so many guards at Texas Tech. They'll be able to make them uncomfortable. I know they do have Washington down low for Texas Tech, but Kentucky does have their own bigs that can make his life uncomfortable. I think Kentucky has the guard advantage here. It's a guard-driven league, guard-driven in college basketball. I also have Kentucky going through. Bottom half, it's too bad about Florida. I love this Florida team. They're great on the glass, but they lost their center, which really hurts their rebounding. And look, this, you know what I mean? Like, you lose somebody like that in an elimination setting, it is a tough thing to go against.
Well, now think about them. For them, they're going to be missing a key player, and right now they don't even know who they're going to be playing yet. So it's not even like all week they can be scheming, hey, look, we're playing against this team. They have a little more size than we do, but we're going to play this way to try not to have that hurt us as much. They're only going to have like a day to get ready for their opponent. And if they run into a team like Colorado with Lampkin, they could have some serious issues with that size.
And Colorado has 3 guys. They're going to be drafted, 2 guys in the lottery. I just think that's just way too much talent, and you're not going to be able to get as much glass. Lampkin's going to eliminate it, and you don't have your center. If this is Boise State, we do see Boise State struggle with athletic guards. So if they are able to get past Colorado, I think they're going to struggle with Florida. If this is Colorado, I'll have Colorado. If it's Boise, I'll have Florida. Bottom tier, look, Hilltoppers like to get out of the run. They're outside the top 150 in defensive efficiency. Good first game back for Connect. I think that Jones having to be the guy in the Big East tournament really helped him in his confidence. I think Marquette's going to be able to pull away from Western Kentucky. However, against Colorado, we've seen when UConn has played NBA-type guys like what UConn has, they have just struggled defensively to be able to keep up with De La Silva and Kobe. I don't think defensively they have enough. I have Colorado going over Marquette. Kolek, even though he's back and he sat out, that oblique injury is basically a back injury, which kills. I don't think he's going to be 100%.
So, yeah, against Western Kentucky, where Western Kentucky is going to run, not really defend them all that much, it shouldn't be that much of an issue for Marquette. But when you get into a game against Colorado, possibly, right, who has a ton of top tier talent on the opposite side, or even a Florida who's not going to be an easy game, or a team like a Kentucky if they make it to the next round. If Kolek isn't playing like a top level, and if he has any injury issues at all, I don't think they have enough to beat those types of teams.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think they're going to be able to get through. I think Kentucky. I think Colorado's going to get through here. Colorado's going to play Kentucky. For me, the one thing that stood out with Colorado is when they've played guys with NBA talent on the wings, they've really struggled. That's what you're getting in Kentucky. I don't think Colorado is going to be good defensively enough to guard Shepherd, Wagner, and company. Yeah. I think Kentucky is going to be able to get there. Then you're going to have Kentucky against A&M and SEC matchup where I believe they split on the season. I just really feel this is where Texas A&M kind of runs out, if that makes sense. With what they do, I don't think they're going to be able to make enough threes. Kentucky is a decent rebounding team, not as good as A&M, but they will be able to limit the second chance points. And then you're gonna make Teckard and the other guard whose name I'm spacing on, I'm sorry, they're gonna make them defend. This is gonna be the first really matchup where those guys are gonna have to defend with all the guys you're gonna be able to run at them. I think Texas A&M is gonna run out of steam, so I'm gonna take Kentucky here going into the Final Four.
Erik has A&M, Kentucky in the South final. I have Houston, Kentucky. I have Kentucky moving on, so we both have Kentucky moving into the Final Four. As we get down to our last of the four brackets of the four regions, the Midwest region, and we look at the number one seed here, Purdue. They'll be playing the play-in team. Purdue has struggled early on in these tournaments, but I think their first couple rounds, they should match up pretty well. I mean, honestly, they've got a great quarter bracket, even a top half of the bracket, because I'm not that high on the 4 or the 5 here. Gonzaga is a team that's got a bad matchup with the McNeese team that can really, light it up from 3. Gonzaga does not defend the 3 well. Kansas is going to be without McCullough. This is going to be one of those regions where some craziness could happen. Erik, tell me why we might see a 12 versus a 13 here.
I look at it like this. The first thing we need to look at is Gonzaga against McNeese. I just feel that this isn't your typical Gonzaga team when we look at it with what they used to do. With what they've been in the past. There's no Drew Timme. There's no Czech Holmgren walking through the door. McNeese is top 100 in offense and defense. They shoot the 3 really well. 39%, 8th best in the country. This is the equation for me. I look a good team against a bad team defending the 3. That is what Gonzaga is. They're not good defending the 3-point shooting. Zags are also really thin. If McNeese is able to get them in foul trouble, that's going to hurt. And I know Nemhart's been playing better, but they just don't. This isn't your Gonzaga team we've seen in the past where they have a 3-point shooter, a guard that can consistently get to the rim, a big and Drew Timme, big and Chet Holmgren. They don't have all that.
They're a little overseeded. This team was a bubble team about a month ago, and now they're all the way up to a 5, kind of still living off reputation. Coaching-wise, too.
Yeah, you got Will Wade. I mean, Will Wade, and the thing about Will Wade, and we've seen this before, and I don't really think people know about this. Like when he got fired from LSU, he didn't take a year off. He worked in the NBA. He was an advanced scout in the NBA. So he was around NBA guys, NBA practices. So he learned more. He is a better coach now than he was at LSU, and he was a damn good coach at LSU. I think McNeese gets through. Stanford, look, you're playing a Kansas team, which even when everyone was healthy, was basically playing 4-on-5. Now you have no McCullough. Hunter Dickinson's not hurt, so you're thin. Games in altitude. Kansas has depth. Stafford 10 deep. Top 10 effective field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. Usually, historically, when you press Kansas, they do well. But with no off guard in McCullough, I think that's going to open up some stuff. I don't trust their guard. As good as Self is, I don't think he's got enough in the tank to win this. I think Stafford gets it done.
And I think there are enough people, because even though these might be games that Gonzaga's like a 6.5-point favorite in their game, something like that. And Kansas was like 7. I locked in Samford at plus 7.5 earlier. I'm sure that's moved since they've announced the McCullough stuff. I haven't noticed, but I think because Kansas has such a big fan base and because Gonzaga has a big fan base and they've been perennial powerhouses for a while, these are two teams that people are going to pick making deep runs, even though these rosters to me don't feel like rosters that can make deep runs.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's just name brand recognition. And that's one thing in a tournament setting you can actually take advantage of.
I have Purdue McNeese in the Sweet 16 here.
And we've seen it. That's going to be more interesting than people think. We need to remember Fairleigh Dickinson last year. Athletic guards, a team that can shoot threes, and a team that's not going to be playing a true big that's going to force Edey out. I think this game could be pretty close, but I kind of think that Purdue is going to be able to get through there. I think they are going to be a little too much.
Bottom part of this bracket, this region, South Carolina, Oregon. Oregon comes in playing pretty well. They have the size with Dante. Can they make shots from three? South Carolina has a more veteran backcourt. This was one of those toss-up games to me that I could really see going either way, and it is like a 1-point spread. So going to be a tight game one way or the other. I like Creighton a lot, and you like Tennessee a lot. So this will be a fun bottom part of the bracket for us to talk about. For me, just looking at Creighton, they have Kalkbrenner, Shireman, and Alexander all back from a near Final Four last year. They were 1 play away. Those 3 guys alone combined for 53 points a game for Creighton. So they have a couple different ways they can go at you with size, with ball handlers. I like the fact that they will lock down on defense, then they execute offensively. I really like their top 6 on their roster. They don't really go much deeper than that, but I don't think they have to. And I feel like for picking them as a team that has like a long-term chance, looking at the bracket here, if they were to match up with the Tennessee, that would be a very good game. 2 really good basketball teams. But I would pick whoever wins out of that game or out of here to beat Purdue. So what I like is that Creighton has the size and a guy like Kalkbrenner that could kind of neutralize Edey, make Edey work a little bit on the opposite side on defensively. To me, sometimes that's the best way to slow down a really prolific offensive player, to make them have to play some defense too, right? To make them have to get a little bit tired to go at them. And if you can pull Edey out a little bit and make him work, he'll be a little more worn down. And so that I have this Creighton team making a deep run. Erik, good defense, good guards, top 25 in both offense and defensive efficiency. They've been there. They've done it. So I have them getting through Akron. I have them beating South Carolina to get to the Sweet 16. Below them, I have Texas beating Colorado State to set up a really fun battle of barns, Texas versus Tennessee in the second round to get to the Sweet 16. I actually went Texas as an upset there with Osmus and just the mental weirdness of what this could be like for Barnes, someone who struggled in these tournaments and then having to face an old team like this. But I sold you out there on Creighton a little bit. Talk to us about why you like Tennessee and how you have the bottom of this thing shaken out.
I look at it like this. South Carolina, Oregon, true coin flip for me. I think South Carolina will get it done. I really don't trust Oregon after winning it and winning the Pac-12. I think South Carolina is something to play for here. They'll bounce back. I really wanted to pick Akron over Creighton. If Akron was a better job shooting threes, I definitely would. I just don't trust McDermott. I don't trust anyone on this team. It seems like every year we've been through the song and dance with them, a team that should win it all, and they exit early through silly mistakes where they constantly shoot themselves in the foot. I feel Texas is too athletic to for Colorado State. Tennessee, I look at Tennessee, they have Connect, Adu, Ziegler, the 3-point shooter, number 25, whose name I'm spacing on, who's an elite defender.
Vescovy?
Yeah. I just think they have everything like you kind of look for. And they're going to have the best player on
most of the time.
Until they reach the Final Four, in my eyes.
Yeah.
There's that, and then they have the big that can make life difficult for Edey. But the thing we need to remember about Edey is that it's going to be called differently than it was called during the Big Ten regular season. With that being said, we need to remember that that's not good for Purdue, because if Edey gets in foul trouble and you pressure their guards, they have struggled. I think Purdue is going to lose to Tennessee. I think the one thing that Tennessee has struggled with the years that Barnes have been there is they haven't had that NBA guy in a half-court set that can get a bucket, and that's what they have in Connect. My Final Four is UConn, Arizona, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
I have Auburn, Arizona, Kentucky, and Creighton. So we have two of the same in the Final Four, two opposites. The team that Erik is super high on, Tennessee, making a deep run. For me, my two would be Creighton, Auburn. I have Creighton beating Kentucky and Auburn beating Arizona. I have Creighton versus Auburn in the final, with Creighton winning. I pointed out, I try to build my bracket similarly to the way that we gamble on sports, to where I'm looking for teams and matchups that aren't going to be the heavy favorite, the most obvious. I'm looking for value. I'm looking for certain things that could happen along the way. And I feel like I've got teams that have a chance, but they're certainly long shots. Creighton's 25-1 to win it all. Auburn's 20-1. I have a 3 seed and a 4 seed. So they're not absurd. We're not looking at teams like Florida Atlantic coming out of nowhere to make a Final Four run, or even San Diego State seemed a little bit far-fetched. These teams wouldn't be a huge, huge shock, but they're not your top-tier teams. And I think Tennessee kind of falls into that range too. Tennessee doesn't feel like they're in that top range of teams. Give us a couple more of your plays and any final thoughts on the bracket, Erik.
I have Arizona over UConn and then Kentucky over Tennessee, with Tennessee winning it. Futures I have Tennessee 14-1, Arizona 12-1, New Mexico 100-1 to win it all. I did a lot of Sweet 16s futures. I did McNeil's, New Mexico, JMU, because I think they could beat Duke, Texas A&M, and Colorado. I really like Colorado 11-1 to get it. It's important, though, that you lock that one in as soon as you can, because after they beat Boise, that price is going to dip down a little bit.
Erik, what is your schedule going to be coming up? Are you going to be doing any live stuff, anything in the mornings with these tournament games?
I think I'm going to be taping something tomorrow night that will be live before the games Thursday and Friday, and then be live Saturday and Sunday morning.
We'll be following along with you, buddy. Thanks so much for taking some time out to help us fill out our bracket. And then same thing for you, Friday, normal podcast and everything coming up this weekend.
I got to babysit my friend's kid on Friday. So I don't think I'm going to be doing a podcast. I think I'm going to be out this week for the podcast. Have to do the good old dive on a grenade for a friend and watch.
Yeah.
So probably no podcast this week. We'll probably take a 2-week break because I'm taking a vacation next week. So podcast will be back in 2 weeks. My show will be live every next Tuesday, though. We'll do some MLB futures and some Sweet 16 bets.
Thank you so much, buddy. Good luck with your bracket and all your futures, all your plays. Everyone, thanks so much for hanging out with me and Erik. If you're listening on the podcast, we still have a lot more to come with racing previews for this weekend, Fairgrounds and Turfway Park. And we'll also have some thoughts on what's been going on in WWE on the road to WrestleMania with Chad Cooper. Folks, we'll be back next week talking some NBA. If you're basketball fans, Erik's here with me each and every week. We wish you the best of luck with your brackets, and I hope you all crush it. We hope you win your pools.